Hey everybody, it's Scott from Double Deedle Design. Welcome back to another Revit tutorial. I received a comment from user WAEL4070 that said, please do a long form video on elevations and sections. Now that could be two different things. That could be how to create elevations and sections in Revit, which would be a pretty short video because those are pretty simple commands. But what we really want to get into is what a good elevation and a good section, a building section, would look like. So let's think about this as an elevation and a section that someone doing drawings for me as a set of finished drawings, and I was going to redline them and check them, what I would want to see in a good set of elevations and building sections. What I would want to see for dimensions, what I'd want to see for callouts, what I would want to see for graphic display. So this video will be a little bit longer, but we'll try to get into everything we can about building elevations first, followed by another video that would be building sections and how to draw these in Revit as quickly and efficiently as possible. Remember, your billable time is expensive to the client, so we want to make sure we're drawing these sections and elevations with as little rework as possible. And without any further ado, let's get started and show you how we do elevations and sections.
All right, so let's open up this plan. It's a small garage with a residence attached to a, this is for a larger home. And so what we're gonna do is take a look at a south elevation or plan south. Now, north is rotated to the right in this view. And so this is actually an east elevation, but the rule of thumb is whichever cardinal direction your building's face is looking. Imagine your the wall has a set of eyes. Say this north wall has a set of eyes and it's looking in that direction. If that direction is north, then it would be a north elevation. If that direction is south or east, it would be a south or an east elevation. In this case, because north is rotated to the right, if there was a set of eyes, I like to think of it, you know, say this is an eyeball and this is an eyeball and it's looking in this direction down from the view, this would actually be east. And so when we click on this, we see that this is a east elevation. We can see that elevation east. So it's not the direction your elevation view is looking at the building. If you were to look through the building and off into the distance, that distance would not be east. It's the direction that your building is looking technically from each face, if that makes sense. So it's just an easy way I like to think of it. Sometimes I just think of which direction is this face looking? Oh, it's looking north. It's a north elevation. The next thing I like to see in elevation is I like to see spot slopes. Now this project has two different kinds shown in this view. It has the kind that where the roof is parallel to your view, and that in this case, we're using a triangle spot slope. This also can be an arrow in Revit. And the other one is where the roof is perpendicular to your view. And in this case, we're using an arrow to indicate slope drainage down the face of the building. In this case, it's pretty easy to see that these roofs slope. But in commercial construction, sometimes you'll need to put spot slopes in plans and elevations and even roof plans where just to indicate that there is a slope there. Another thing I always want to see no matter what in any elevation is door tags. And I also want to see window tags. In this project, we use an hexagon shape with a letter to indicate windows, and we use a circle with a number indicating doors. And in this case, we're actually calling out the size of the door for the contractor on the elevation sheet to make it easier to procure these doors. He doesn't have to look at a door schedule in order to know that he's got 3 larger size garage doors. So always show window and door tags in your elevations whenever possible. So another thing I like to see in elevations, and this is probably one of the most critical, is I like to see a lot of detail. The more detail, the more texture, even sometimes the more color you can put on an elevation, the better off that elevation is. It doesn't want to be overloaded with too much information, but enough that you can get a very clear picture without too much indication on here of what's going on. Really helps to make an elevation look good. So without any keynoting, tagging, calling of dimensions, you can tell you've got 3 garage doors, you've got a standing seam looking roof with slopes on it, you've got a window, you've got some kind of wood patio feature or something where the contractor is probably going to have to build something, a wood structure. You've got what appears to be a fence and some slat work in front of the pitch of this roof, in front of this, on this gable end. And so it's always very important to kind of show as much detail as you can for your contractor and your builder to eliminate potential questions. Small little things that I also like to see in this project, we have actually pulled dimensions that indicate what each area of the elevation is. So on the left, this bay indicates gear storage. Over here, this is our garage. We've got very clearly defined a carport here. We know that this is our covered entry area. And then we also know that inside we have a kitchen in this space. It doesn't really show too much on the outside, but it's very helpful to orient if you're looking at this elevation for the first time and going, oh, what are these features in this elevation? I see this in residential construction a lot, but not as much in commercial construction. I think we probably should in commercial construction do this a bit more. One thing in elevation that really makes these pop is to turn on shadows and sometimes even shading in an elevation view. Now, for this project, we didn't. Our firm standard was to show hidden line, black and white, shaded elevations. But in a couple other firms I've worked for since, turning on shading actually helps and makes these elevations really pop. This one has a template turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off to the side here. And when I turn that template off, I'm going to go down to my graphic display options. And the first thing I'm going to do is open up shadows. Now I am in hidden line mode, so I'm going to turn on shadows and ambient. Ambient shadows to me really make it pop as well. Just casting shadows without ambient shadows doesn't do it much justice. So we hit OK. And immediately this is starting to look very, very detailed. We can see shadows coming off the roof edge, off this recessed wall in the back, even off the light fixtures over the garage. However, these shadows to me are a little too dark and a little bit too overpowering. So I'm going to go to my graphic display options and I'm going to go down to lighting. When I open up my lighting, I have a secret recipe for making shadows that look pretty good without overpowering. And that's to set sun to 80. Ambient light to 80, and shadows to 20. This turns my shadows back quite a bit and makes them accent but not overtake the drawing. So just printed like this would be a very attractive set of drawings that we'd probably get good feedback from a contractor. If we want to take it one more step, we can go to graphic display options. Unless you have your materials already set up, realistic is going to give you a bit of a flat image here. The shadows are nice. The colors are nice, but this is not quite the attractive colored image that we want. So I like to go to just shaded mode. So shaded mode might actually produce a nicer image than just simple hidden line mode, but there is an elegance in hidden line with a little bit of shadow turned on. So let's put it all together and go back and create an elevation from scratch. Instead of using one that we already have, I'm just going to right click on this elevation and I'm going to create a similar. So we're going to recreate this elevation on the east end, which plans south, just so that we can take practice at creating these, detailing them, and showing them as they should be shown. So I've created a new elevation. You'll notice that as I move it farther away, the arrowhead disappears because it's not quite sure what face we want to be parallel to. The closer you move your cursor to a wall, it will actually put an arrow pointing or sticking to that wall. So notice as we get closer, the arrowhead appears to point at that wall. If we were to get closer to this wall on the right, it would actually point in that direction, thinking maybe you want an elevation pointing to the right. So I'm going to move the cursor so that it gets near that east wall and creates an arrowhead. I'm going to click, I'm going to hit escape, and then I'm going to back that head up so that it aligns with my other annotation callouts. I like to keep all my annotation callouts in a nice line across the bottom. I don't like to take my annotations and move them in close. That doesn't do any good. So now if we single click the triangle portion of this elevation, we will notice that a blue line appears. That is our cut plane for elevations. And the dashed line indicates how far back that elevation is going to go before those elements disappear from our view. Now in elevations, I usually like to show the entire building. So I'm going to stretch this all the way up past our roof edge so that our elevation is encompassing the entire building. And then let's right click on that blue arrow and say go to view. So this looks very similar to what we had before, but there's definitely some things that we can clean up. First of all, if you have a template already established and this view automatically assigns an elevation template, but if it didn't, if it just did, we will say no elevation, you might get something like this, and then you would just go in and create or assign your exterior elevation template, and that does a lot of cleanup for you. Now, we've already got some levels that are called out here, but you'll see that a lot of these are overlapping. So let's kind of break these up a little bit. We'll put breaks on them. So if you click your elevation line and you see this little elbow symbol, single click that, and it'll actually drop your elevation down with a bend in it. Now, this firm standard is to have 90-degree bends, which actually works a lot better because once you pull past a certain point, it won't stretch more to the left. So we're going to keep it pulled left and we're going to drag it down so we have a nice equal spacing between the words level and the next 100 foot. There's a nice little gap in here. Let's do the same thing with this one. We're going to just go ahead and click that elbow. It's going to place automatically. We're going to click this dot. We're going to move it to the left until it can't move anymore. And then we're going to drag this up and down until it has a nice gap between the words main level and 99 foot. So we've got a nice little readable gap here. The next one down is very readable. This one's overlapping. Here's another tip. Revit automatically adds, when you click the add elbow, it drops it below the current position. So a way to cheat this so you're not always clicking and dragging back up above is to click the elbow and let it drop down and then move it over. It's a very nice, easy, quick way to do it. If I were to say I wanted to move this top of second floor storage level, if I click this, it's going to drop it down and into this next piece of text. And then I have to end up grabbing it and moving it back up. So whenever possible, add elbows to lower elevations and they'll drop straight down and you can just move them over. So let's repeat that on the other side. Again, this one will drop down. This one will drop down, but we need to get it up above, so we have to do this anyway. And notice a horizontal blue line indicates that I'm locked to the other side's break line location. You can see it's over here on the right. We have level heads. We've got one more to do. Great. Now our levels are all set. So let's put those spot slopes in. We're going to go up to spot slope. This one's already set up as an arrow, and I know that roof slopes that are perpendicular to my eye's view have arrows on them, so facing down. So we're going to just add the 7 and 12 slope here. We're going to add a 7 and 12 slope here. Because I know these roofs are going to be triangular spot slopes, I'm going to change my slope representation from arrow to triangle, and I'm going to offset it a little bit further. I'm going to offset it an eighth inch. Now when I hover over these, and I don't have to hover over the exact roof. If I find something else that's parallel to it, I can click there and place it. Same thing here. I can click on this roof and place it. This is strange. This one is saying 12 and 5. Wait a minute. Why is this one 7 and 12 and this one's 5 and 12? The reason why is Revit has a tiny little glitch in it, a tiny little tick, where if you select the intersection of this roof and this roof, it will actually change the slope a little bit. So let's delete that. Spot slope it. Let's find a spot. Oh, see, now look, see how it's given me 5 and 12 or 7 and 12, depending on which one of these I select. I know it's 7 and 12. I'm not going to fight Revit as to why it's doing that. So I'm just going to find the nearest element that says 7 and 12 and use that one. So something to watch out for in that case. Remember to pull my vertical dimensions as much as I can. So let's get this fence called out again. Let's make sure that's not transparent. That's opaque. I think I'd also like to know the height of this top beam, but guess what? It aligns with the top of plate main level, so I don't have to dimension this. I also don't have to dimension my windows if my firm doesn't require me to, but I have worked at places where they wanted me to dimension window heights in the elevation view. It just depends on what your firm standards are, but that's one way you can do it there. Another thing is tag. You can say tag by category or just type in TG, which is what I usually do. I don't like leaders on my tags. And I'm going to click on this piece of window here. And this firm likes the window tag to be in the bottom right or bottom left corner. So I'm going to place that here. I know also my doors need to be tagged. So I'm going to hit TG again. And you can hear that me tapping on the keyboard. And the tag is already set up to provide the number as well as the dimension of the door. So I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to click on that one. I'm still using TG, and I'm going to click on my third one. All right. I'm missing a spot slope over here. Remember, try to catch every roof that you can that has some kind of slope to it. So we've created a spot slope there. So the last thing I want to do is I want to create that heavy datum line on the base so this building looks like it's sitting in actual site. It's not floating in space with a foundation up in the air. But I'm not going to just draw that line. I'm going to actually go and mask off the rest of this. So let's go annotate. Let's do a masking region. Our line style is going to be a triple, quadruple, extra wide 8. And I know that usually my finished grade is 6 inches below my ground. Now that doesn't apply when you have garage doors and sidewalks. So I'm going to put this just within an inch of the garage slab. So let's create our first line. Let's offset it by 1 inch down below the floor level here. And we're going to run it straight across. And then usually a good rule of thumb is to slope your drainage away from your building at about 5%. That varies based on where you live, but I'm going to take this out beyond the crop region. Okay, I'm going to take it out to here. And then from here, I'm just going to loop back. This will be invisible when my crop is applied. And then slope it again back up to here. So I'm going to make a shape that will mask this out. Now, when I hit the check mark here, all the lines on the side and bottom are going to disappear, and I'm going to be left with 2 sloped lines and this horizontal. And I've trimmed away my foundation, which I won't really see in real life, but I still want to indicate that that foundation is there, okay? So what we're going to do, this is a practice that I've seen in a couple firms that I really like the way this looks. Let's take this and let's just hide it. I'm going to hit HH, or you can use the sunglasses and say hide element. And this is a temporary hide. So HH, and it goes away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use thin dashed detail lines. And I just like to use the standard Revit hidden. It's one of my favorite line styles. I'm going to show the outline of this foundation. And I'm just going to use the click tool. I'm just selecting lines. And I'm picking all these. Now, nothing appears to be happening, but what's actually happening is I'm placing hidden lines on top of this foundation. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I'll take this across to here. We will use hidden lines. I'll use DL again. And I will select this edge and here. And I'm going to trim this line and this line. Remember, these are sitting on top of foundation lines, so you can't really see them. And then I'm going to trim this one as well so that this line and this line now match. Now watch what happens when I unhide this. I now have a nice indication that there is a foundation under there that goes down to 96 feet or goes down 4 feet. And this really pops. This says this building is sitting on a site. We didn't show a lot of detail below grade, except that there is a foundation under here. Now, this is the way I like to see elevations, especially ones with foundation walls or frost walls, so that I know that there's a foundation under there. It just makes the whole elevation pop. And for my last piece, I'm going to go to my graphic display options. I'm going to leave it on wireframe. I'm going to turn on my shadows, and then I'm going to go to lighting, and I'm going to use my 80, 80, and 20 rule to get a really nice set of elevations. Now, what did we miss from our previous elevation? Let's take a look. They're pretty close. In fact, I think mine looks a little better with this solid foundation underneath it. And that is how you create an elevation that is suitable for using in a set of construction documents. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one coming up where we'll do the same process, but for building sections. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Enjoy using Revit. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.